All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Support webinar. Today's date is April 27th, 2019. This is a Saturday morning webinar, and the title of today's webinar is Trading Made Easy with the Viper Tools. And as everyone knows that's been to our webinars or live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk. Therefore, there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar, other webinars we have, our live trading room, or anything else with Viper Trading Systems should ever be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the webinar. By the way, Raymond's, I guess, traveling back to the summer place, did you say? And what happened to Charles? Actually, he had a foot issue with some major infection in his foot, and went to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, this is worse than you're thinking, and they put him in the hospital. So, you know, that's getting all taken care of. All right, so hopefully everything will be a-okay with that. And, oh, you're welcome, Chris. You're welcome. We'll go ahead and get started with the webinar. Let's go ahead and go to a screen here. All right, first off, I'm going to show something that I've shown in quite a few webinars, but real quick, let's just go over it. Okay, and you don't have to memorize this because, you know, obviously when you're playing a video, you can actually stop the video and even take a picture of this. I'll get it one of these days. I keep forgetting, but I'll get this in a white, you know, so that it can print a lot easier if you want to, or you can just, you know, put it on a JPEG or something and just look at it every once in a while. But, you know, we're going to have a webinar on Monday about drawing on your charts, but it is extremely critical. Our best traders, you know, including myself on my trading, I draw on my charts. You know, you've got to determine if you're trending or chopping. That's number one. Okay, if you're chopping around, then you're going to have to draw horizontal lines and trend lines on your charts. Okay, you've got to know what the minor trend, the secondary, the medium, and the longer term trend are. You've got to know which direction they're going to be flipping as quick as they make, you know, larger retracements. To give an example, they're going to be flipping it again. Okay, so you got to know what the major trend is. You need to know what the trend is on the left and the right. I had a webinar a few weeks ago about that. You want to draw trend lines, horizontal lines, wedges, and boxes on your chart. You want to use your trend bands for your continued trends. You know, we'll talk about quite a bit of that today. And if you miss a thrust, you got to wait for the retrace or minor lightning breakouts with tight stops. You know, I don't miss a thrust a lot of times. If I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're heading down on, for instance, crude oil, I may just hit a market order and take a quick chance on it. And if they decide that's the moment they're going to retrace, I kill it. So that's really important there, because you could miss a 50 tick move. You know, you just don't know. Okay. Now it's most important to wait for the retrace, obviously, but you know, whenever you walk up to your computer and start trading is when you got to diagnose your charts. All right. Use your lightning 1 or 2 as minor breakouts and retraces. Use lightning 3 as your medium trend and watch for your breakout and your retrace. And of course, use our object trader tools. All right. So what I'm going to do now is let's look at crude oil. All right. And for some newer people in the room, first off, I want to talk about lightning 3 and what I consider to be the medium trend. Okay. Because when I look at a chart, I look at both directions. And we talked about this last Monday, but I think it's one of those that needs to be repeated. Because to give an example, we've got a low here, a high. Do we have a higher low yet? Well, we don't really know, because right now on this chart, you've got a high here that's not identified, right? Everybody knows what an identified swing is. If you're new to Viper Trading Systems, it's a little basic, but it's also extremely important. You know, for instance, let's just start with this chart up here. We have a high in this area up here, and then we have a low, and then we have a higher low, but we don't know that's a higher low until it takes out at least the swing that started it, right? Okay, so this one takes it out by about 5 ticks. Okay, when they do that, a lot of times, then they'll bounce back up, and they may not take out the previous swing, but that's not a super identified, but it is identified. This swing right here is an identified swing because it broke the low. Then this is on a short chart, obviously, on this low here down to here. Now, when I look at the chart, a lot of times you're gonna get like a little bit of sideways motion before they finally break again. Okay, and you got to decide, again, where would this trend change if something happened? You got to know that. Okay, so let's say you didn't see anything on this chart except this right here. Well, if you were looking at this and they decided to break above here and come back and kiss it, then that's changing trends. Okay, but if they just break this, it is not changing trends. They're trying to fake people into, well, like a deeper retracement, for instance. So, always keep in mind that if you're going to trade early trend changes, like we do in that room quite a bit, is you want to make sure you actually break this, pull back and kiss, and then take off. Or that you can at least break it and then box it in. Okay, and we're going to talk about the Viper tools quite a bit today of boxing in, because boxing in is extremely important to trading, and I think it's one of the most important things that we do, actually. Okay, now everybody knows by looking at this chart, obviously this didn't do that to begin with, but that's what you have to diagnose every single chart. When you get up first thing in the morning, or in the afternoon, if you happen to get around to trading or whatever, you have to diagnose your chart and know what I'm going to do based on my identified swings. Okay, let's go to the end of the chart now. Now we know right now, for instance, let's go back here first though. Okay, this is an identified swing, right? Because it took out a high, low, lower high, and you definitely got a lower low than this. So that's an identified swing. All right, is this an identified swing yet? So you had a higher low and then a lower high, and then you broke, right? So basically what happened then is this swing became, sorry about that, this swing became your identified swing, and this one in the process also became identified because it actually broke the low. Okay, that's what you're looking at. All right, so down here, so you have a high, you have a low, you have a high, low, lower high, lower low. So that's an identified swing. And each time that you see this in real time, you're going to know when this thing is going to change trends too. Now you have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low, you have a higher high, and that's by only 2 ticks. So I don't consider that to be an identified swing to the upside, because you really want to get at least a full bar closing above. Okay, but then also you have to look to the left to trade the right, because at the time that I'm doing this little illustration here, this is the left side of the chart, this is the right side of the chart. Okay, pretend this hadn't happened yet, or I'll even move it so you don't see it. Okay, let's say that you're seeing this in real time like this. Is that an identified swing yet to the upside? And the answer is no. Okay, now if it beat this 65.16 by a good 5 or 6 ticks, maybe 5, I go by 4 and 5 ticks a lot of times, and then watch to see what happens. But I also look to the left to make sure where my left swing is, because to me, on this chart, unless this decided to do just like we talked about over here, to break up, is that an arrow line? Not letting me grab my arrow line. Still not letting me grab my arrow line. What's the deal? There it is. All right, if you broke up, and then if you came back and rested, anywhere between here and even here at the time, and then took off, yes, that would be a trend change. Okay, but you've got to always look at your charts and be ready, unbiased, to go either direction. And that's really important with good volatility, because there's been some good volatility in these markets. Okay, now this didn't happen because we see that it clearly broke. Okay, so in your mind's eye, you take this off. You're no longer looking at any kind of heading up yet. So then you have a low, a high, lower low, identified swing. All right, is this swing identified yet? Here? No. Is this swing identified here yet? No. But when it breaks this, and even this, it does become identified. So then now, just on this chart right here, you have two identified swings. Everybody see that? Let's see, why is 65.94 an identified swing Jack? Let's look, just one sec. Well, it only becomes identified, Jack, because see, you had a low, you had a high, you had a higher low, but you had a lower high, so it never became identified long at all, right? But this is your identified swing over here first off. See your low, high, lower low, identified swing. Low, high, higher low, lower high, lower low. Then this swing does become identified, and so does this one. Now, when I have them real close together like that, myself, if I was trading this and I was looking for any kind of trend change to the upside, I would not be boxing it in like that, because that would be your identified swing at that time. They're both identified, obviously, because they broke the lows. See what I'm getting at? Okay, so, but when they're close like that, you do have to realize, though, that, they're going to fake you, for instance, if they decide to just break that little more minor type of a trend. Okay, I don't know why that didn't remember my box. Okay, everybody see that? So, this does become identified when it takes out that low, right? And it did. So, at the time, before it took it out, no, it wasn't identified. This was your identified swing, because it had taken out the previous low. You have to take out the previous low to get identified. But once it did take out this low here even, then it was obviously both identified. Okay, and you're going to find when you're trading that this really works out quite well. Okay, and when you get these huge thrusts like this, where it just heads down like a big dog, there are opportunities to go long here. I'm going to show that on some charts, but you're going to be going against the trend. Okay, and I'll show you how I drew on my chart when I went to bed on Friday morning, but it was actually a long trade for a little bit. Okay, does anybody have any questions on this so far, though? Because this is the crux of the way we trade, and it works, because you'll find yourself being right probably in the 90 to 95 percentile. I'm not going to guarantee that, but that's a lot of our traders find that they're right about 90% of the time or more. Okay, so let's go to the actual chart and let's see if we can figure out what to do. All right, well, first off, though, if you had identified this chart so far, what direction would you be looking for? Let's go ahead and get rid of the horizontal lines. We don't need them. We don't have array. We'll just get rid of those horizontal lines. All right, right at this very moment, you walk into your computer room and you decide, what am I going to do to take a trade? All right, I know for a fact that this side of my swing, my chart, this is an identified swing, right? And so is this, because it finally broke this. Okay, but this is an identified swing on the left side of my chart. This is not an identified swing yet, okay, because you have a high, have a low, have a lower high, but you don't have a lower low. So that's not identified, okay? But will it become identified if it breaks 71? Yes. Will it become, what if it decides to break up above here and come back and kiss it? then you would change trends. Okay? So let's look at the actual chart. I hope this is not confusing at all, because I try to make this where it's as less confusing as possible. All right, this is what your chart actually looks like. Let's say that you got up at, I don't know, this is probably 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we've got traders that, you know, overseas and stuff like that, that more than likely trade this. So, you know, looking at our chart, I see little higher lows on my lightning 3, but I see that on my left side of my chart, this is my identified swing on the left. Okay, because we can draw that same thing. It's the same chart. Okay, so we're heading down, right? Okay, but if they break this, is that changing trends? This is a trick question in a way, because it's not. Because see, you have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low. If they break this, that would be a higher high, yes. So on this part of the chart, this would be a new identified swing if they break this. But looking to the left, you can clearly see it would take breaking this to really head up. Okay? So, you know, this is why we get some of these really good trades. To give an example, with this higher low, they may break this, and you'd be looking for a trade probably in this little sweet spot, somewhere in this phantom area. Okay, because you are getting a higher low. They could be breaking, but they won't be breaking until they, if they were to do this, if they were to break resistance, and just like I showed just a few minutes ago, if they broke it and pull back and even break this some, and then pull back and kissed, and then took off, I would take that long. But you have to look at your charts to see what's really going on, okay? Just because they break this does not mean that they're going to be heading up if they break it, because on the left side, this is your high, okay? So, you know, could this be a trend change if they broke this and came back and rested on support? Yes. But if they come back up here and don't rest on support and start taking it back down, then you know that this high is your identified swing, and this is nothing but like an ABC and roll. Everybody see that? Really important to see that, because it'll keep you on the right side of the trade, I'll promise you. Doesn't mean you can't scalp some of these. You know, for instance, if I wanted to try to get 5 or 6 ticks on that and it broke above this little resistance here, I might jump in it for, you know, a quick little pop. Okay, so would you box it at mid-band, no bias? Well, Mindy, on your question, you could. You know, for instance, if this was to break above, like right here, could you actually box that and see if you could get a little trade like that? What do you think? You could. But if you did, I would not, absolutely not let it go against me. Okay? Now, like I said, for this to actually break and really start heading up, it would have to break up, pull back and kiss, and hold support. If it dilly-dallies around and takes out support and you box it in, you know, for instance, let's say that this jumps up here instead and just decides to start rolling over. Well, you want to box it to the downside, right? Because you're still heading down. You got a high over here and a low. So this is definitely an identified swing. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about using the Viper tools, so let's go ahead and bring up Object Trader. And we'll just put it in replay mode. All right. Now, let's say that you were looking at this chart and you think, okay, I don't really know exactly what they want to do here just yet because they're kind of going sideways. So let's get rid of the lines and stuff. We'll leave lightning on it. But couldn't you actually, for instance, do a wedge right now even? Something like that. Let's change that color. That's not the right color. You could do a wedge, right? If it comes up in this area, for instance, without breaking this, you could do a box for a phantom. or you could just start boxing it in with your region, right? Okay. So in other words, I wouldn't go short unless it took out this little area right here, the way it's sitting right now. But I'd like for it to actually get up into this mid band and roll over again. Okay. So you could draw some boxes on your chart. You know, for instance, if it gets up in this area here, you know, and rolls over, well, let's just see what it does. We don't know yet. I got up at 4 o'clock on Friday morning, 4:30. Man, that was early. I don't know why I got up that early, but got that little prompting, and sure enough, it worked. But just woke up. I get those a few times, by the way, and what's really weird is that if I don't go ahead and get up, I walk into my computer room and see that they've dropped 50 or 60 ticks. It's weird. Okay, so far you got a little bar trying to go up. Let's speed this up a little bit just so we can see. Speed it up a little bit more. See how it kind of hit that little box and rolled over. But, you know, this is actually, if you do box this like I did just then, and you take that trade, don't let it go back inside that box, just in case they're just going sideways. Could that have been a little tag of a hit? It could be. Let's see what it does. Yeah, that could have been a little scalp. Went from mid-band to line 2. Getting higher low. All right, see if you did box right across here like we talked about. Could you get a little scalp? Let's find out. You would have. See there? Mindy, on your question now, basically, if you were to take this against the trend, well, for one thing, you'd probably even see it do this and draw a trend line and probably get a little bit earlier than breaking that box. If you're going to go, let me show you what I'm talking about here. See where this went down, up, and then down a little bit, and you draw a trend line across there? If you're going to chase a trade like this, I'd probably actually more than likely go long right in through here instead. But if you want to be a little bit safer about it, yeah, you'd want to break that, at least that resistance right across there. Okay, but keep in mind that your overall trend is down. All they're doing is doing a little retracing. Okay, so for instance, if you were looking at this trade and you wanted to go ahead and see if you could get a phantom, it looks like a phantom to me, by the way. It really looks like a pretty good little phantom. See how it's trying to roll over? That's your third bar right there. See it right there? If that goes below that, would you short it? It went below it by a tick. If it goes 2, I'll go ahead and click it. Now keep in mind I could use my region too. By the way, you could also use your wedge tool, because you can clearly see the wedge is tighter now. See it? Thrust, retrace, thrust. So you could use your wedge tool. Let's use that instead. And we'll do touch plus 2. And if this somehow tightens up a little bit more, I'll tighten my wedge. Yeah, third bar is really good, Phil, because see, it touched Phantom. It touched, and see this rollover, see how you had an up bar, down bar? You basically get in when it goes past that bar to the left, which would be like a up, down, down, and it takes out that little swing. It's not a swing technically, it's just a third bar rollover. So I'd already be in this trade actually. Okay, because you would box it like this. Just like that. Okay. Now notice that it didn't take out your left side of your chart. So that's where you'd really be changing trends at this time anyway. Now, would you be changing trends if this decides to rest on top of this support here and bounce? And the answer is yes, because you could actually start a trend change. And you could get ready to box this in. You know, for instance, if you got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you saw this, this is starting to break highs and everything. So you could literally box it in to see if it break up, but it's already broken down from line 6. Okay. If that pops up and closes up, I can redraw my trend line, by the way. And I could do this too. So you know what? If this decides to break up, I might want to take it the other direction. We'll see. So I'll do a, we got to wait for this to go back above that line though. Let me go ahead and reposition this now that that's done that, and we'll turn them both on. Let's see what it does. And keep in mind, if that was to break my trend line and go against me at all, I would get out of that trade. Okay, if it decided to break this, because it's kind of trying to head up, but you know, it's also nothing but a phantom trade because it's got this color background. You should already be in it, as a matter of fact. Okay, but we're going to go ahead and do it the conservative way and just see if we can get it. This is strictly utilizing Viper tools to take some of these trades like this. Wow. I don't think I would want it to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning because that was slow. There you go, you're in. Now, let me ask you a quick question. If you took this trade right here and you wanted to protect yourself, because see, I'm already down $100, where would you put your stop? You got a little thrust down, a little retrace, a little thrust down. So couldn't you put your stop just above that little swing right there? That way you're not risking, 15 ticks. You don't want to risk 15 ticks. So let's just put it above that little wick there and put it on exit on close just in case. So we're only risking $180. We're going to get one out of the way. We're going to get one down to the bottom and see if we can ride a runner. Okay. Now you could also, if you're the type of trader that likes to add to trades at all, use your little wedge. And if they do break that, maybe you want to add one. See, because that would be breaking a trend line. And keep in mind, the only time that I would recommend scaling in is if this stays green on the particular trade you're on. Okay? Because, for instance, if this goes through that line, this is definitely going to be green. So I wouldn't mind scaling in at that particular point. Now, if this drops below here, I'm going to retighten my stop just a little tighter. Let's see, add this time isn't your much saying there's 6480 on the left. Well, you could actually add when it breaks that, yeah. Yeah, see where your lightning 3 is right here? If you wanted to add, but see, keep in mind that this is here, and then this is here. But, as you're rolling over on like a phantom trade like this, this is not a bad way to do this. Let's see what it gets here, if we get anything. Okay, we got 3 in. And we got a target. All right. So now you got to make up your mind at the very moment that you do this, what do you want to do? Okay, because I would be doing this. I'm going, wow, that's a heck of a trade. Now, you could also, though, thinking of this the way it's happening in real time, as far as market replay is concerned, you do have a little bit of a trend line right through here just in case they decide to break it. So you could actually do like a wedge along those tops. And if they do decide to touch like above that by 2 ticks, you could go ahead and scale out of 1. That way you're not taking a chance and risking, a lot of money on any kind of pullbacks, especially with like 2 contracts or 4 or whatever. Okay, and if this bar goes down, I'd reposition that line, because that is a trend line by what they're doing right now anyway. Like I say, if that goes down instead, we'll reposition our trend line. See there, with the top of that wick. And if it gets us, it gets us. Okay, we're into 1. Now, what if it decides to go back through that wedge, like to the downside? Could we actually go ahead and add 1 back to it? See, for instance, all that did was just a little fake on us. Now, that didn't get us 1 anyway. That may have been the way I drew my wedge. But anyway, we're good to go. All right. And where would you put your stop right this very moment? I think what I did on that wedge where I couldn't get to scale into that was because I didn't do the right one. I needed to do my T button to go back through it. That was my mistake. All right. Now you're retracing a little bit right here. Okay. And I would probably, more than likely, if they take out this little area right across here, I'd probably get out of that trade. But if they decided that they wanted to check resistance, it's right up here. Okay. But I've got a rule of thumb: if I want to ever ride 1 down, I won't let them take out predictor. Okay. Because predictor, as a rule, see when these predictors start printing and everything, they don't go above them. Now, they won't always be like at mid-band. It may even be a little bit higher, but that's the only way to really ride a trade down, like with a gusto. Okay. But you could also, simply because it broke this trend line along in here, you could be out of this trade too. Okay. Looks like it's still rolling over though. Now, I got up at 4 something. I want to show you something here. We'll kill this trade because I want to ask you if you would have taken the same trade, because you saw it on Friday that I did definitely take the trade. So I'm going to see if I can duplicate it real quick. It's 4 o'clock, 4:12, 4:20, 4:26. All right. Now you walk into your trading room right now. All right. You haven't been anything. Pretend this is not even here. Does anybody see how you could trade this trade as we speak? Let's see. Is that stronger resistance, 64.57, or a double top? Well, you're talking about like up here, or right up here where the resistance was at the time. Well, the resistance is no longer there. See, it basically broke this, so your resistance is right across here right now. It's no longer here because this is actually holding. Okay, but how many of you get up, look at your computer and think, oh my gosh, I missed, a killer trade. What am I going to do? What would you do right here? Anybody? What would you do in this situation that we're into right now? You just walked into your trading room. For some reason you woke up in the middle of the night and thought, yeah, I'm not getting up. And then, you felt like, well, maybe I should. Maybe there's something going on. Who knows? Something, without setting an alarm or anything, something wakes you up. Maybe you ought to get up. But anyway, that's the timing that I actually got into my computer. Okay. So I was diagnosing this chart and I thought, you know what? This is actually looking like it's still heading down, right? So I just simply turned on bar close, short. And then I turned it on auto. Now, was that a risky trade at all? Because if this bar goes down, I'm not going to let it take out this little swing here. Let's see, with 1 contract to start, Mindy, yeah, what I did, matter of fact, I showed that. I only went with 2. I only went with 2 contracts on it to begin with. I turned on auto, but I turned it off after it hit the second contract. Okay? But could you, if you were diagnosing this chart just like I did on Friday morning, you look at the chart, you see a trend line. See that trend line? You see that they've got a resistance area that's not really identified, but you're identified way up here. Obviously, I don't go by way up here. I then start looking at my micro lightning instead. And you do have a lightning 3 here. So what I did that morning was I diagnosed my chart. Let's go back to that black chart. All right, this is what you were seeing at the time. So I'm thinking, okay, well, they're really heading down, right? I mean, they're heading down in a big way. Now, I didn't have to look at this chart because I've taught myself to see this chart without looking at it. Okay, and you can do that too, I promise you. It's not that hard. Okay, so what I did is I said, okay, I've got a low, I've got a high, I've got a higher low, but if they were to decide to take this up, they'd have to take out 46, and they'd have to pretty much, if I was to take a breakout, I wouldn't let it go back against me. So that was in my head. And if they came back and rested on top of support and then boxed it and took off, who knows, it might have headed up. So that was in my mind. All right. But also in my mind was, wow, monster short. Okay. So then in my mind, I drew a trend line like so. As a matter of fact, I think I even drew it on my chart that day. Okay. So I draw a trend line and then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's just see what they're going to do. So I turned on my bar close. Could I have actually just boxed this in? Yes. Okay, but I had to make a decision, fairly quickly. I'd already missed this. This happened at 4 a.m. or so. Okay. But is this a risky trade if it doesn't go against you? And the answer is no, it's not. Because, if I would have gotten in this with one contract, let's say that this bar closed and I put my stop right here, just in case they were still playing around. Okay. But they didn't, and I want to show you what they actually did. That bar closed down, and Object Trader will fire the short. It's got to close down. Just pinged around a little bit. It's going to close, not yet. If it closes up, it won't fire the trade. Now, if that bar closes down, it will fire the trade. See, and then I put my stop right there. If this bar closed. Let's see, could you draw a triangle right there and wait for it to break out of the triangle either way? Yes, you can, but you got to be careful going against the trend. If I do that, I don't let it go against me. For instance, if you did a triangle like this, like that, they're liable to wick you in it. In a case like that, I would probably not do the triangle as much as I would probably do a break of that box. Okay, see, there went your trade right there. All right, then I saw that happen and I just simply turned that off. Okay, and I moved my target out of the way and I literally just watched the dollars. Okay, but I put my stop really quickly right up there and I was risking like 11 at the time. And granted, that's 220 bucks, but I wouldn't leave it there, because as soon as this started dropping, I would drop it to my little swings. And see, now I was only risking 2. And then, of course, I think everybody saw what happened with crude oil on Friday. It literally dropped like a stone. Okay. So could you be, for instance, like literally a one and done on a deal like that? Put your stop just a little above there. And they just kept on trucking down is what they did. But when I started seeing this happening like this right here and going sideways, I said I had a low. I've got a little lower low. Then I'm going to bring my stop. And will they take it? They might. We'll see. But remember, I actually got out on that bar in my real account. I showed it on Friday. The reason I did is because that monster moved down, and I know that when it does that, it's probably going to go sideways a little bit. But if you're going to trade it the way we teach it, you want to trust the little swings. You know, see your swings like right across there now. See it? And if it takes it, it takes it. And there you got flat. All right? And then I said, you know what? I'm just going back to bed because it was still just right at not quite 5 a.m. So I just went back to bed. But on my chart, I went ahead and drew. I said, okay, I've got resistance right across here. Everybody sees that, right? It dropped like a stone. There's resistance. So I simply drew a box in my resistance area. And I said, if it gets up there, that's a phantom trade. Okay? Now, could you take a trade even up to the phantom? And the answer is yes. Let me show you something here. And this happens quite often when they drop like a stone like this. If you wanted to box this in right across here, like so, and bring your box according with the swings. Now, I was in bed when this happened, but see where that swing is identified right across there? If it breaks that, could you take a chance and say, you know what, I'm only going to go for 10 ticks, and I'm only going to go for, if this thing goes against me at all, I'm going to get out of it in a heartbeat. So, in other words, put your stop just right under there. You're risking very few ticks. Get it right up in there. You know, see what I mean? Just literally follow the bars just in case you made a wrong decision. Did that actually break above there? And the answer is it actually did. Okay, see how it did? Now, that was hindsight, obviously, what I'm showing you here. But in a way, it's not, because when you look at a trend, you're also looking at this trend and this trend. See, this is a trend right here. That's your longer term trend, or your lightning 3, medium trend. But this is also a trend. You know, in other words, when it thrusts up like this and pulls back and it starts breaking and stair stepping, that's a trend too. It's just a smaller trend. And the thing is, when you trade against the real trend with this trend, you have to be more careful. Okay? But one thing you're going to find when they drop like a stone like that, with all kinds of bars like that, you can go ahead and box in and go way against the trend. Now, like I said, I just went on to bed, so I didn't care. But that actually turned out to be a pretty decent trade. But I drew that little box ahead of time when I went to bed, and I decided, you know, if that would actually go ahead and take out that box by 2 ticks, it would probably more than likely be a short, because that's a phantom trade. And I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it actually turned out to be just that. But is this a trend change? Yes or no? No, because it literally broke support, and it's just kissing resistance. Now, if you were up at the time, what I would personally do is, if it touched that line at all, I'd probably fire one contract if it even wicked back. Now, like I said, I wasn't up at this time, but if it touches that line and then wicked back a little bit, I would fire one, because that's resistance right there. Now, would you be catching a missile? Well, if you did, you kill it instantaneously if it takes out that resistance. Okay? Now, if you want to use the tools and do it more like, let's say, for instance, a little bit more conservative, then use your trend lines and things. You know, for instance, you've got a trend line on this chart already right now. See it? It's pretty much straight up. wedge. Could you be, and then also look here. And so I would probably, if I was up at the time and it kissed that resistance, I would probably go ahead and short one and then let it break a trend line also and short more. Okay, and that's a real good way to use the Viper tools. Now, if you don't trust, for instance, this could have just been nothing but an up move, and that could happen, but you've got to be quick on the stop if so. Because, for instance, if you were long on this, you'd still be long, but the moment it hit that resistance, you better cover that or get out of that long, or at least make sure that you don't let it take out the little micro swing. Like, see your down candle, up candle, this would be a little box so far. Now, granted, this candle's in here now, but this is actually your third candle right now. So you have a down candle, up candle, it's going up a little bit more. If it goes up again, you may have another candle, and this will be it instead, but it's still the same spot. Okay, let's see what it did. Speed it up just a little bit. Yeah, see, now you've got a candle like so, and there's your little box right there. You see, it broke my trend line, so you're in it. And by the way, you can even scale in these things if you want to. I don't know if I'll be able to, but you can actually do it like that, scale in. See there? Just use your trend line to scale in. Okay? Now notice, if you would have gotten in that trade, let's just pause this for just a second. If you would have gotten in this trade right here at this resistance, notice that what I was talking about with it wicking, when it touched that line, are you going to short that immediately? No, because it could go right through it. But what I look for when I do a trade like that, if I'm aggressive, is I wait for it to touch it, and then you see the traders pull back. Now granted, that was only like a half of a candle, but, if not, just box it in, and that would be your box right there. Okay? And I don't know if anybody remembered that one or not, but that turned out to be a monster short trade also, and that was way before the room opened. And it was way before I got up even. But I actually showed, Raymond was actually trading a little early that morning too, and he was on Skype. And I showed him where I'd actually drawn that box ahead of time, even when I went to bed. Now, I wouldn't have turned on Object Trader and let it take the trade automatically, simply because I don't leave trades unattended. Okay, I don't think that's a smart way to trade. You leave a trade unattended and they'll get you. Okay, let's go ahead and put our stop here right now. Let's see, so your initial stop is above the phantom on that. Yeah, basically, Jonathan, on your question, if you ever take a phantom type trade, and let's go over a couple of phantom type trades, because this trade, if a person will teach themselves to see it, is a really, really good trade. Okay, notice that you had a phantom up here. It barely touched line 6 though. All right, so that may be more of a blue bar probe than a phantom, but this is a true phantom right here. And it even turned out that at the time that it was being drawn, even that was where resistance was too. So it turned out to be a phantom and a resistance area, which is even a double confirmation. But when you box in, for instance, obviously you don't know what's going to happen at the time. So if you happen to box this in and took the trade, all right, you could easily put your stop above here, because if they were to come back above there, they're probably going to take it up because they'd be taking out resistance, and a pretty strong resistance, no less. Okay, so usually what I do right off the bat is I put my stop at line 0, or pardon me, line 8 on a short and line 0 on a long. And then the moment that they give me my little lightning swings, I drop them. And I drop them. And if it goes down more, I drop it. See, that's your lightning swing right there. Okay. Yeah, this is actually just an extremely good way to trade the markets. There's no question about it. All right. But you can go against the trend occasionally too. Okay. Phil, I'm still waiting on the silly thing. I'm hoping it's going to be here any time. Let's see if we can go a little faster, and I'll just kill whatever trade here in a minute as soon as we get taken out. So you can just follow your little swings, and if it takes it out, it takes it out. All right, that took it out. Now, let me ask a quick question on this. If you're a little bit more of a gutsy trader, could you have boxed this in, especially when it took out this resistance on the left and this resistance here on the left? See those lightning threes? Could you actually box this in right here and see if you could get a long trade? What do you think? You want to try it? We'll do a region, just see if it works, just the way Charles and I teach it. I'd already be in it more than likely because I'm seeing it breaking a trend line, but let's just try it this way. And I'm going to go against the trend, so I'm only going to do like 10 ticks. And touch plus. See if we can get 10 ticks. No trade. Well, we've got our long. I was getting ready to do a short also, but it didn't break. So let's see if it gets 10 ticks. Now, where would you put your stop now that you don't want to leave your stop way down here just because you're trying to get 10 ticks? So if you can see your lightning, your high, your low, higher high, not really identified to me, but I'd still probably put my stop just under there anyway. And if this bar closes up and gets my target, then obviously I'd be pretty good anyway. But keep in mind, I'm going against the trend, so therefore you want to be really careful doing that. Okay? All right, I'm going to advance this thing, and I want to see if anybody can pick out the next trade. And we'll go ahead and get rid of this. And let's see if anybody can pick this out. Turned out to be pretty nice, didn't it? All right, let's see here if anybody can pick out. Now, let me ask you a question. Is that a trend change, yes or no? What says the team on that one? That's absolutely a trend change, isn't it? I mean, there's no question about that. Basically, if you were watching that little trade right there, that is definitely a trend change, but you missed it. So where's the trade at? So let's draw on our chart first off. High, low, ABC. So I've got support here, and I've got support here on my micro side. High, low, higher, high. So that's my secondary swing. That's my primary swing. So they can't take out what I call my secondary swing if we're going to still head up. That's also my mid band. So I'm looking for a trade until predictor tells me I'm looking in this area right here. All right. Now, if they bounce here, I'd probably still take it with a minimum criteria. So let's see if we get that either way. All right. We'll see if we can get one of those. That was definitely turned out to be a good long, didn't it? Now this is no longer on the table. Everybody sees that, right? Why is that no longer on the table, anybody? Because that's no longer my secondary swing because it went up higher. But this is the area right here that you would want this trade. Everybody see that? Came right into my little box. All right. If I'm a gutsy trader, I just jumped in it. If not, then I want to box it like so. Take the trade if it breaks the box. And we forgot that we didn't turn our targets back on. Oh well, that's all right. Our targets are turned off, but that doesn't mean anything. We can move our targets out of the way. Obviously, we'd want to move it since we've only got one target. Where would you put your stop? Anybody? Well, as soon as this is an identified swing, I'll put it right here. Uh-oh, we just got taken out. No big deal. That turned out to be, would you have put your stop there though? Yes. Yeah, we didn't get it moved in time, so that's okay. No big deal. All right. Everybody see what we deal with each and every day that we trade like this? This is just a pretty phenomenal way to trade, actually. All right. Now, if you actually, and by the way, this is really close to what I got on Friday. I showed it, remember? I showed it on mine, and then on my kiddos, I got 635. I remember that exactly. Does anybody have any questions on any of this? A minimum criteria trade, Roy, I'll go over that for you. Absolutely. Let's get rid of lightning, and I'll go over any trades you want, and then we'll wrap in about 10 minutes tops. All right, let's get rid of lightning 3. All right. Let's look for a minimum criteria trade. Now, you know this was a trend change, right? At the time. Because what was actually happening? You were starting to get, like we talked about, you thrust up, you held mid-band, that's a good support area. It broke up through these resistance areas. So, you know, boxing in here is not a bad idea. The new indicator, not today, Neil. Still waiting on the silly thing. Okay, but let's look at minimum criteria and see if we can see some good minimum criteria trades. Let me fix my chart. This is a little bit, there we go. All right. All right, minimum criteria trade on a long trade. My personal opinion is that you have to get, now this is a breakout above minimum criteria, obviously, above line 6, but that's not a minimum criteria trade because a minimum criteria is going to be after a thrust and a retrace. So minimum criteria on a long, you're looking for a close below line 6 and a close below stealth. All right, so you're watching it. Got a down candle. Got a down candle. Now that closed below line 6 and it closed on stealth. Everybody see that? See how it's closing on stealth right there? All right, so let's watch one more bar. All right, that one closed up and that one closed up. So would you have taken that as a minimum criteria trade, yes or no? What do you think? Well, technically you could if you did one thing. What? Box it in. 1, 2, 3 reversal. Down candle, up candle, breaks, take it. Down candle, up candle, breaks the candle back. So you have 1, 2, 3. Could you take that? So you can. That's what we talk about boxing in like that. Now that did not qualify for a minimum criteria trade, did it? But it came really, really close because your stealth line is right here and this bar closed down and that bar closed up. So it really never closed below stealth. But that still is a boxed area if you want it. If you took it though, where would you put your stop? You know, for instance, let's say that we don't know what's going to happen, obviously. Let's say that you take this trade right here. Where would your stop be? Well, look to the left. You got a little up candle, down candle, up candle. So there's a little box even right there that did go up higher. So couldn't you put your stop just underneath there if it did decide to break up? Yeah. All right. That's a minimum criteria trade. With a little bit of a not quite close below stealth, but I would still personally consider that like a minimum, like a minimum watch yourself type trade. But would you want to miss the move if you didn't get it? Not at all, right? Absolutely not at all. Because if you miss a trade like that, then obviously you could be missing out on a great trade. Okay? So that's not a bad one, but it's not a true minimum criteria trade. Okay, let's see if we get another one at all. Doesn't look like it at all. And see, if you didn't take it, you missed a heck of a move. Now, there's some of our people that will actually, let's say that they missed this way down here or didn't draw a trend line or whatever, and they're not in it yet. You could use stealth. See how it broke stealth and then regained stealth again? That would fire that trade on that bar right there anyway, because you could use stealth as your entry, and then your stop would be there. Let's see, could you show a minimum, oh, that's a minimum criteria that failed just for the purpose of it? Let's see if I can find one. Well, that's minimum criteria, but it never went up, right? See, if you were looking at this in real time, this is minimum criteria trade right here, right? But do you take it just willy-nilly? No, because, okay, you closed below stealth. Okay, you didn't close below line 6 though, so that's not a minimum criteria trade. Now you close below stealth and line 6. Is that a minimum criteria trade? But the bar would have to go up, right? And it didn't. And it didn't. And it did not. And it did. Okay, so would this be a box in trade for a long? A mid-band instead? Yes. And you're looking at a down, and an up, so you'd have to pretty much box it across there, like so. Right? And usually if you got a wick really close like that, you may even engulf the next wick, especially if they're really close like that. And did you get a trade? Yes, you got a quick little pop. Remember, matter of fact, I think I called this in the room on Friday, and it hit exactly where we had a line drawn. Remember, we had a line drawn across here because that was our lightning swing. So your high, your low, your high, your high. So we had a line drawn, and then it rolled back. And I said, don't let it go back inside that box, remember? And it did, so you're out of the trade. So you might have gotten a scalp, you might not have. If you went in at mid-band itself, yes, you got a scalp, and I did call it at mid-band. Okay? But also remember what we did on that little trade? We actually decided if it broke support over here on the left, right below this little swing here, that we would actually short that trade, and we got a short. Because that was right at the open. All right, let's see if you get a minimum criteria trade here then. What do you think? Let's see if we get one on the short side. No minimum, no minimum. There's minimum. It went above stealth and line 2. All right, so you could box this, right? There's your candle to the downside. There's your candle. That's to the upside. So you're basically boxed like that. But if it does keep going up, then okay, now you've got a candle up, candle down. Like so. Now you've got another candle up. So this is a candle up, candle up. So let's see if we can get a candle down at all. Candle up. So then redo your box. Everybody sees this, right? The way I'm doing it. Candle up, candle down. Now we can actually draw it. So you got a candle up, candle down. Sometimes you have to just see this in your mind's eye to actually take this trade, though, you know, rather than trying to box it really quickly, because I would be drawing a trend line in my mind like so. And if it broke that trend line, I'd be in that trade, and that's pretty much it. So I'm in one, okay, and I'm feeling a little bit of heat, not a big deal yet. And now box it again. See, the box people made a better decision. Just 1 second. Got 2 candles. Let's see if we can get it. And then there's again. and then you're in. Okay, so I felt a little bit of heat on being aggressive with the trend line, and that's one thing you got to watch with a trend line like this, is you can actually get faked. And that was also a mid-band type rollover, but see, a trend line would have gotten you in, but a box never did really get you in. Okay, but then that trade did start heading down. Okay, let's see, do you look at any oscillators that will improve? No, we don't mess with anything like that. The reason we don't, Phil, on that is simply because too many of those are too lagging. You know, this trade was literally called in the room right there. We boxed it in. You know, the one thing I got to say about trend lines you got to be careful of is if you were already in a trade and you were scaling, it's okay. But you notice how they'll do these little bitty, and your trend line's real almost straight up and down. You got to really be careful with those, because see, that would have faked me in, and then you felt some heat. Now, where would I have taken that trade off the table? Anybody? Looking to the left to trade the right, I had a high, low, lower high, lower low. So my stop would have been right here to begin with on a $5, well, that's a $10 tick. So I might have gotten out and got back in. Okay, but we didn't take that with a trend line break on Friday to begin with. We actually did box it in. We just kept watching it stair step, stair step, stair step. And when it finally broke, we took the trade. And that will also get you in it. Because see, this was stair stepping up, green, 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 higher, high, low, lower, and then breaks. It would have triggered that to red. So this would have gotten you in on that bar. Okay, I think I ran it about an hour and 7 minutes. Did everybody get something out of this today? Because if a person trades like this and really watches the trades, you'll be amazed at how well you'll actually be able to trade. Will you make an occasional one where you'll miss one? Sure, everybody does. But if you can keep your averages, you know, around that 85, 90% on your trades, you're really doing phenomenal. Okay? And I think that's what we end up doing in that room. At 4:20 a.m. when you shorted, did you worry about the left approximately 6? Well, when I shorted it, it wasn't at 4:20. I didn't get up till a little, right around 4:30. But that trade went my way so quick that I didn't even have time to think about it. It was, this literally just started heading down. If I remember right, I don't even remember seeing $30 of heat on it. And when it plowed it like that, you saw where I actually got out of that. I got out on that bar, that exact bar, because when that went down that quickly, when I see bars that go down and never do any kind of stair stepping, I get out. The moment they get a bar back up, I'm usually out. And it was a smart move because it did go down to here. But by the time you got out of it, you would have gotten out of higher than what I did anyway. Because I showed that on Friday. I got out on that bar. Okay, let's see. What was I going to show? Real quick before we wrap. I can't even remember now. Oh well. Let's see, at 8:30 area, that box would have been stopped for long. You're talking about at 8:30 in the morning where we trade that 8 o'clock, and this little trade here, keep in mind that we also traded this long on Friday. This is the little box we had drawn. Let me go to my regions. We'll put our little box on there, 759. White one, and you'll see it. Remember this right here? We opened the room. Some of our people literally got long right when the room opened. If I remember right, some of our people got in even at 64. If you even waited for this little box here, you know, that turned out to be a monster trade. And then it stopped you out after you broke your trend line. we were expecting it to go up here. Remember, I called this trade in the room right here too. I even said at the time, I said we had a high, we had a low, stair stepped up, so that was our swing. And we said take the trade if we get a higher low, remember? And this bar right here was the higher low. See where it never took out my line. So we got in at the mid band or on that bar close, and it went up to 23. And I had a line drawn there, and I said, don't let it go back in the box. And it definitely went back in the box. And also keep in mind at the open, you know, when this started breaking down, like right here, you know, was that a risky trade? Not really, because I mean, we had the line drawn, but if you're a retrace trader, what did it do? It thrust down, it retraced right back into resistance, and then rolled. And that's what they always do. Notice that one came a little higher, but if you box trades or watch for the momentum to change the other direction, you'll find that once you get a high, low, lower high, and then break, you're starting to head down again. This was actually, well, you can draw it, stair stepping up and then stair stepping down. See there? See how you have a low, a high, a higher low, higher high, identified swing. High, low, higher high, identified swing. High, low, lower high. Not really what I call identified because it barely took it out. Everybody see that? Then you got the same one, so you box it and down you went. So as this was doing this, and then breaking, this is your entry right there as it was starting to stair step back down. And you'll find that you'll get some really good trades like that rather than, you know, like I say, if you draw a trend line too tight, you're going to get tagged into a trade pretty quickly. Matter of fact, if you drew it like that, you'd be tagged in right there. But see, that's still stair stepping up. Okay, so learn to really see those boxes and everything, and you'll get some of these monster trades. Okay, that should be enough. This will be posted in the next 30 minutes or so. I hope it helped. Let's see, do I leave my chart on 24/7 or shut down? I shut down and reopen all the time myself. Let's see, did I not get anybody's question? I think I did. Got everybody's. I'm looking right now. Let's see. Don't see any others that I missed. I think we're good to go on that. 832 midband area, yellow bars long would be stopped. Yeah, that's one thing about it. You know, you got to keep in mind when you're trading, you know, they took out swings and everything when they did this, like they were going to really change trends. But if you looked at a fib number, it was more than likely just a retracement to begin with. So, you know, when they did this midband, this was a legitimate trade that was called on Friday. It just didn't work, but it did hit a target. Midband straight to my line that I had drawn in the room the other day. Okay? But we're also smart enough that a lot of our people shorted it when they took it out, midband type, trying to get a phantom. Watch the phantom. I even mentioned that, hey, this could be a phantom. You could get a quick long trade, remember? And it still had the yellow midband. But once this got this lower high and started stair stepping down, it was heading down. All right, thanks everybody. We'll do this again on Monday. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. And hopefully Charles will be in on Monday. If not, I'll handle the room again. All right, thanks. Have a good one.